In spite of my shattered dreams, I came to Birmingham with the hope that the white religious leadership of this community would see the justice of our cause and, with deep moral concern, would serve as the channel through which our grievances could reach the power structure. I had hoped that each of you would understand, but again, I have been disappointed.
King's letter was a scathing criticism of Birmingham's white religious leaders who favored a gradual approach to civil rights.
It expressed deep disappointment with white moderates who he saw as slow to act as the cries for racial justice grew louder.
Almost 90 years old now, in 1963, Reverend Douglas Carpenter was a young man, following in his father's footsteps, becoming an Episcopal priest.
He was so compassionate and loving and hardworking and such a powerful leader.
As the younger Carpenter established his ministry in Huntsville, the elder Carpenter was Bishop of Alabama, mired in the growing tensions between whites and blacks in Birmingham.
He was made the chairman of the integrated committee that was to kind of keep civil rights moving in Birmingham. People forget that.
Charles C.J. Carpenter is the first of 8 signatures on the call for unity. It's the open letter he and 7 other white clergymen wrote on April 12, 1963, published in the newspaper, asking Dr. King not to hold demonstrations during Holy Week. It's the letter King responded to from inside the Birmingham jail.
And they all thought King's letter was wonderful. I mean, it's a classic. There's no disagreement with his letter.
But some of the ministers disagreed with King's assessment, feeling the letter permanently cast them in a bad light. Now retired from St. Stephen's Episcopal Church in Birmingham, Carpenter wrote his father's biography, just so people would know the man behind the letter. Years later, he would meet King's daughter, Reverend Bernice King, lamenting that their fathers never got a chance to be friends. With 6 decades hindsight, he says King's letter has stood the test of time.
The white moderates have a lot of power. They're able to do stuff, so why don't we do it? But a white moderate would say, oh, don't get political in the sermon. What King wrote in 60 is certainly very relevant today as well. In a situation as bad as we have in the United States right now, to stand on middle ground is really a cop-out.
2 Methodist pastors were among the 8 clergy. Reverend David Barnhart is a Methodist pastor in Birmingham.
I mean, these are the big wigs and rabbis. These are the leaders of the big congregations to say, you know, you're pretty comfortable. What would it take for you to risk something? You know, I'm risking jail. I'm risking assassination. What are you risking? And to me, that's like a gospel question, right? It's the what are you willing to risk for this?
The United Methodist Church right now undergoing a split involving mostly Southern congregations over differing beliefs about sexuality. Barnhart says religious leaders walk a tightrope with congregations who are often uncomfortable with topics like race, which intersect with political ideologies.
And the question is really, whose discomfort are you paying most attention to? If I'm paying most attention to my own discomfort, to me, Jesus calls me to pay attention to other people's discomfort, other people's pain.
The remaining clergy included a Presbyterian, a Baptist, a Catholic, and a Jew.
From the Jewish perspective, we have a responsibility to repair the world and to fix the issues in the world and wherever we see them. And so we should be motivated to do just that and to be able to use our faith as a motivation.
A prominent New York rabbi was often pictured with King, including during the Selma March for voting rights.
Teachers would say, like, who are modern prophets? You know, in religious school class, we talk about who the prophets are and what they did. Who are modern prophets? And MLK comes up frequently in those conversations, like, because of the civil rights movement and what he did to help move that along. The reason he was a prophet wasn't because of what he accomplished, but that so much of what the prophets did was point out what was wrong in their society. and say, this is not the way God wants it to be.
And Rabbi Henkin went on to say that the letter really challenges people of faith to take on a more active role, making the world more just for everyone, not just people who practice and believe as you do.
Dr. King's letter specifically addresses the clergyman's call for unity letter, but its messaging is far-reaching.
So he is writing specifically to the 8 white ministers, but that's not really his audience.
Coming up, the direct message to the masses.
You're watching Project Community, letter from a Birmingham jail.
I hope the church as a whole will meet the challenge of this decisive hour. But even if the church does not come to the aid of justice, I have no despair about the future. I have no fear about the outcome of our struggle in Birmingham, even if our motives are at present misunderstood. We will reach the goal of freedom in Birmingham and all over the nation, because the goal of America is freedom.